The beauty about menus is we create, a structure for you, but within that, you are allowed to make changes whenever you want.
I am here with Miss Elizabeth. She is an expert when it comes to your licensing process with your menus.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. So I'm a dietitian and I worked in a hospital for about a year or so, and now I'm working solely with ALFs, group homes, foster homes, catering companies.
So how do you work with assisted living facilities when it comes to issues with, for example, a resident used to like a certain food and suddenly they can't eat that food anymore? Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Carlene Cadet Francois, and as you know, I am all about assisted living, bringing you resources, helping you get your assisted living up and running, and finding you some success. And today I am here with Miss Elizabeth. She is an expert when it comes to your licensing process with your menus. As you know, we need a licensed dietitian to give you your menu in order for you to be able to open your assisted living. That's a requirement. You can't do without it. Even if you're a family member and you're watching this video, you're a family member caring for your loved one at home, you will need to know what are some things you need to do when it comes to food, because at some point you're going to have some issues with that. So I am going to let Miss Elizabeth introduce herself, and I'm so super excited that she is here with us today. And we're going to have a really good time giving you some good values. And if there's anything that you want us to ask for next time, you could drop that in the comments, and we'll be more than happy to get her to answer those questions for you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. Thank you, Carlene, for introducing me. So I'm a dietitian and I worked in a hospital for about a year or so, and now I'm working solely with ALFs, group homes, foster homes, catering companies, and we work to get menus that are customized to the individual. And I currently am working under Anna Alvarez in Living Well Menus. She has been working for 30 years in this business. She has so much knowledge. I've learned a lot and I can definitely answer hopefully every question. But of course, if I ever need more expertise to answer any questions, I can always reach out to her. But if you are ever going to be working with Living Well Menus, you'll be working with both of us. So you'll get to, meet both of our characters, and we both will be able to help you with your nutrition goals.
That is so exciting. I just want to say I have been working with Living Well Menus for years. I have been referring all my clients to Living Well Menus. I was one of their clients when I managed an ALF. And when I tell you, you will come across issues with suddenly a resident used to like certain food and suddenly they don't like it anymore because of their medication or have you. So how do you work with assisted living facilities when it comes to issues with, for example, a resident used to like a certain food and suddenly they can't eat that food anymore?
So the beauty about menus is we create, a structure for you, but within that, you are allowed to make changes whenever you want. You are allowed to make substitutions on your menu, and we always will give you the instructions on how to properly do that. And ACA regulatory agencies really love to see that you're making changes. It shows that you're honoring your clients and your residents' wishes. So you definitely can make substitutions at any point you need to in the year on your own. If you, however, do need some guidance, or maybe you want to get a whole new menu for that individual, you can always reach out to us. We have lots of free resources, guidelines based off different diets, different ideas for you. And then if you do want to maybe order a menu for them, we can go through with that individual and make a customized plan for them, something that will fit the individual and the home itself. But really, we are a resource to you. Any questions you have, we get questions all the time, every day. Someone saying, oh, my patient's having a gallbladder issue. What do I do? They're waiting to see the doctor. So I just give them some guideline sheets until they can go see that doctor and get that issue taken care of. But we always understand the home is constantly changing with people's different needs. So we will always be there to answer any questions.
That is so amazing. I will say, even from personal experience, we know that you can't get your license without a licensed dietitian putting together those menus for you and making those changes for you. And sometimes you'll have residents that used to be on a regular diet, and then their health status changed, and now they're either on a puree menu or a no salt diet type thing. So
Mhm.
you're constantly finding yourself going between your dietitian and your resident doctor. How do you navigate that? What are some ways that you work with ALFs to make sure that they know how to use you as a good resource?
So, in terms of specific diets, what we do in our menus is we have these, they're called therapeutic diets. And the beauty of therapeutic diets is they're going to cover a variety of different diets for you. So, they're going to cover if you have a diabetic in the home, no salt, low fat, low cholesterol, it's going to cover all of those diets for you. The only difference is you would have to be cooking with less salt. But even your diabetic clients, everybody's eating the same thing, maybe with an exception that instead of having the regular like Jello, they're going to have a sugar-free alternative. And the reason we do this is one, it's going to make it very easy on the residents. They do get a little upset if they're seeing other people have different things. I would feel the same way. Why are they getting to eat that and I can't? So this kind of makes it all across the board. Everybody's having the same meal, whether you're diabetic or not. And that can really help the calmness, the peace in the home. And it's also going to help your staff and your cooking as well, because trying to make individual meals for each person can be very taxing. So definitely having this kind of therapeutic diet makes it a lot easier. In terms of clients when they're maybe not so used to a low salt diet, I do have some techniques, some methods to kind of help add flavor into your food. I can always share those resources and make it a little bit easier transition. And same with even like a puree diet or any modified texture diets. Those diets are really not so far off from what we're saying to give. We just make the regular food you're going to have for your clients who are on regular texture. And all you're doing is blenderizing and pureeing the different meal items so that way they can have those options. If you're having chicken and green beans and rice, they're going to be having chicken, green beans, and rice too. It's just going to be in that pureed form.
I love that. I love how you think about the resident as a whole, because no one wants to be the only one, right?
Mm.
And the thought that is put behind putting the menu together and making sure no one is feeling like they're different and not in a positive way. I love that. And I also love the fact that you work with your customers to make sure that they find the right fit for the menu. I also want to mention the menu is very price friendly, yet very nutritious, because I have someone who used that menu and there's different versions of it, right? Can we go into the different versions and how the menu is structured?
Yes. So really it matters on the individual. Like when I get you on the phone, usually starting out with people, the most standard menu that you'll see across of a lot of our clients is going to be something very simple for like a dinner time, like a soup and a sandwich, a salad, and then lunch you'll have a more heavier meal option and it's like an American style food. So you'll see chicken, rice and peas, you'll see spaghetti and meatballs. That's what most people have. But of course, every home is different. And, if you say this isn't working for you or off the bat, your clientele, we can change it. So, for example, we have a lot here in Miami-Dade, we have so many Hispanic populations. So we have a completely Hispanic menu. We have your rice and beans every single day, pork, your plantains. We have those menus available. We have Jamaican menus, West Indian menus. We have a kosher menu. You really let us know what you need and we can provide it. And we also even cater to some higher end ALFs that they have maybe 2 options for lunch and 2 options for dinner. Really, it just depends on what you need. And the beauty too of our menus is every year when we renew, in that process of renewing, you're always able to make any changes on your menu. And so you can really customize it to yourself. Maybe you noticed your residents have not been liking fish. No one in the home will touch it. You say, can we just take fish off the menu? That's fine. We'll take it off, find some other items to replace it that fit well for you. And again, that goes for any meal item that you haven't liked, or maybe your residents have been requesting something. And so you're reevaluating your menu every single year. And that really helps your residents be engaged and not get tired of things. And so that's always an option. Of course, if you are happy, you can always stay with the same menu, but you have the flexibility.
Yes. And I also love the fact that there are throughout the day. So it's how many sheets? It's like 5 of them.
So you'll get 4 cycles, and that's how you'll be using them throughout the year. So each cycle is 1 week long. It runs Sunday through Saturday. And then what you do is you just use them on a rotation. So this week is cycle 1, next week is cycle 2, then 3, 4, and you start with 1 again. So you're just rotating them all throughout the year. And what's beneficial about this is if you're having maybe spaghetti and meatballs in cycle 1, you're not going to see that for another 4 weeks. So you're not having to eat the same thing every single week. Of course, I do have some residents that maybe love a certain meal and we have Taco Tuesday every week, but you don't have to do that. You can have a lot more variety so no one's getting tired of having the same thing.
And I also like the fact that there are substitutions as well. So with those cycles, can you tell us about the substitution menu?
Yes, so you'll be given a menu substitution list, which just has some pre-selected items for you to always be able to choose from. So maybe we'll have, like a peanut butter and jelly. Maybe your resident just doesn't want to eat something like that. They have those options. So you have some nicer meal options like a lasagna if you just wanted to change up the meals for everybody in the house. So you can always choose from that menu substitution sheet. However, even if maybe you want something a little bit more unique, you want to maybe have a cultural food that a resident's requesting, we might not have it listed on that menu substitution sheet, but you are still allowed to give those items. You just have to make sure that you're documenting all these changes. So when inspectors come through the doors, they're always going to ask, what changes have you been making? And they want to see that you have changes. If you're so happy with your menu, even then I recommend make a change once every few weeks, because it's a little suspicious to them if everything's perfect in the home. Like, that's not very common. Things are going to come up. So you can always make a change at any point in your meal times to fit budgeting. Maybe there's an issue with supplies, residents aren't liking something, or especially holidays, because we're not going to serve spaghetti and meatballs on Thanksgiving. We're going to give the big turkey, mashed potatoes, all that. And so you're able to change your menu whenever you need to. And you just have to follow the proper guidelines, which we will always tell you how to do. We have videos on our website that go through those changes, as well as every time you get a menu with us, we explain the entire process.
Yes, absolutely. You will end up serving food that is not in your menu. You just have to make sure you check with your dietitian to make sure that it is okay for nutritional needs. And I will tell you, you're going to have resident birthdays. You're going to have days where you celebrate. And, and you're going to have a specific type of residents that like specific foods. One of them, for example, she liked pizza. And so, of course, we couldn't feed her pizza every day. But over the weekend, we could have a pizza party and she'll have her pizza. Another one liked ice cream. And there was another one that liked donut. They're just like us, but they're just a little older and they need a bit more help. And so we look for ways to make the food as tasty as possible, even with someone that may have a no salt diet, for example. Maybe there's a sweetener that you can put on there that they like. You know what I mean? And so I feel like treating the food like as if we're eating it help us to really establish and meet our clients where they are. You just have to put the extra love into it.
Exactly.
I also like the fact that the meal is easy to cook, right? Because when it comes to caring for your residents and depending on the size of your facility, will determine how easy it is to navigate the menu. So tell me a little bit about the fruit of thoughts that you put into the menu, because you mentioned earlier that everyone eat the same food and the fact that they don't feel alone, but it makes it easier for staff. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the thought that you put behind there?
Yes, so we definitely know cooking is a very time consuming aspect. It's also very varied in terms of skills with their different cooks because most homes don't really have chefs if you're a smaller facility. So we wanted to create things that we as individuals eat in our own homes, things that aren't too hard to make. And we've also seen over the years, maybe certain meals we get comments on, and they're people letting us know that this hasn't been working well in their house. So we can always reevaluate our menus and change things over the years to fit a more broader, larger group. So everybody's eating the same things in terms of like if we're having pasta with meat sauce day, and that's a very quick meal, very easy to cook. And of course, if you have difficulties cooking something, you can let us know. I had a client tell me, they were like, I have never in my life made fish. I don't know how to make fish. And I was like, well, you can either learn, or if it really is something that you can't get your hands around it, we can change it off, whatever is going to work well for you guys. But definitely we understand that. And we also try to choose things that are going to be budget friendly. You're not going to find any sirloin steak on our menu. Maybe a Salisbury steak, something a little bit more economical. But we want to make sure these are realistic things in your home. That's why we don't do, for most of our homes that are smaller, we don't do two big meals for lunch and dinner. We make it simple that the dinner time is going to be something like soup and sandwich. You'll also notice a lot of residents that are in the older ages of their life, they're not as hungry either. They don't want to have two big meals. I only notice really too much the high end facilities that they'll cater to this, but it might not even be necessary. I hear all the time, they're just not eating. They don't want to eat it. So we'll make things simple, sandwiches that you guys can get it real fast. And of course, see what your residents like, and we'll work with you.
Yes, absolutely. I will say though, depending on who's cooking the food, the seniors really don't eat that much. Even from personal experience where I was a manager at an ALF, and you can try to get them to eat as much as possible because you want them to maintain their weight, you want them to be active, and food play a major role into that. And they're just not having no two big meals. You can forget about it. One
Yes.
big meal. Some of them will choose that to be their lunch. Some of them will choose it to be their dinner. And then you work with them, right? Even though that food may not be dinner time food, but if that's what they like and that's their big meal time, you look for ways to work with them. And that's one thing the smaller setting do for family members. Whereas the bigger setting, they still look for ways to work with their seniors to help them to eat, but they have less flexibility because now they have a chef and they have a very strict way of doing things. Whereas in the smaller setting, you're cooking the food yourself or your staff is cooking it, and you look for ways to make things easier for your clients. Not good or bad, it's just what it is for what that is. I will say though, sometimes I come across clients with dementia and they just forget that they liked that food 2 days ago, right? What are some ways that you work with dementia clients to make sure that they can get the most out of what they want to eat?
So clients that maybe are having things like that with dementia or any kind of mental health delays, a really good benefit for them is things that they can eat with their hands. So things like finger foods can be very beneficial. So doing things like sandwiches they can grab, they can eat chicken tenders, things that they're having to use a lot of utensils sometimes makes it a little bit more difficult for them to eat. So in cases like that, we can always do a finger foods menu, something that will help them grab things. In terms of really to help people with, I know, an issue with gaining weight, and making sure that we're consistently eating, there are techniques to do that. I always recommend, that's why I always start off ALFs. I recommend we do the main meal at lunch versus dinner. Some group homes, it's the opposite because they have some programs that they'll go to during the day, and I don't want them to miss out on the nice meal. But for ALFs, I like to front load calories starting at the beginning of the day, doing what more you can for breakfast and lunch. You'll notice things like with sundowning, that the closer you get to night, the farther they're going to want to be eating. So really trying to make sure you can get the most benefits out of those first few hours. Whenever the sun lights up, that's going to be really great for you. Something else too is trying to find calories and things to add into their food if they are suffering with, weight issues. So we give you a menu, but we're not giving you recipe, which does give you a lot of flexibility too. If the menu says chicken and rice cycle 1, and then it says chicken and rice cycle 2, one day could be an Italian chicken and rice. The other one could be a jerk chicken and a dirty rice. So you have a lot of flexibility with your recipes. With that, you can also change how much calories you're adding into your food for clients that might be struggling. So for example, maybe you're having soups. A good one I used to always tell people at the hospital struggling was you can add protein powders into things that don't have flavor. You can add things like butters and oils to just help bulk up some calories, adding things like beans or little pieces of meat, blenderizing vegetable to make that into your sauce if they refuse to eat vegetables. Kind of thinking back to if you have a picky eater, if you had a kid, a lot of those same strategies go the same exact way. And you will notice there's a lot of similarities with how children eat and how our older adults eat. So you can always also find techniques online. And there's not so much information out there, I think, in terms of older adults, but maybe look at some techniques people have been doing for kids. And not to, of course, say they're children or anything like that, but it's just they want to enjoy what they want to enjoy. So, trying to find those techniques to make sure they have their meats and their vegetables and things like that.
I absolutely love that. And then, because it's true, as they start to get older, they become picky eaters. And one way to deal with picky eaters is to deal with that strategy that you just mentioned, is to think about how did you get your kids to eat vegetable, even though, like you said, we're not treating them like children, never do that, but you're looking for ways to get them what they need. And one thing we used to do, we had a picky eater that needed more protein and would not eat much. And he also had dementia. We would make peanut butter shakes. We would put peanut butter, we would put fruits in there, and we would just look for ways to make it taste really good. He liked it nice and cold. And that was our way of making sure he get what he needed for the day. He didn't need to know peanut butter was in there. He didn't care. He just knew it tastes good. So I absolutely love that idea, because it will be one way that we can get our residents to get what they need. And anything else you want to share with us?
Another technique too, just to keep in mind, if you do have a really picky eater, is you have to learn your residents. I know we make broad recommendations on our menus for portions and things, but something to try could always be giving smaller portions. And sometimes individuals get very overwhelmed if they see a big plate of food. So if you notice somebody just not eating, you could try it out one day, see if it works, give them a smaller portion, and it just feels like a less of a challenge. And that can also be a really great help in terms of seeing if your individuals will eat like that as well.
That is very helpful as well. And sometimes I even notice the color of the plate will make a difference, whether they touch it or not, because certain colors trigger, especially with clients that have dementia and Alzheimer's, certain colors will bring certain triggers. So also the color of the plates make a big difference as well.
Have you noticed one color more than another?
I think probably red is one of those colors that they notice a plate is in front of them. But for some clients, red is a trigger. So you really have to study them to see which color that they tolerate most, because it's
Mhm.
very hard for them to maintain consistency, because with dementia, it just progressively gets worse. And like you said, with sundowning, as the day get closer to nighttime, their behaviors are different from, it just depends on the time that you actually end up feeding them.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and we will have you back. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. And I will also add their website where you can get more additional information in the comments below, the description. And like we do, we look for ways to bring you the value, to let you know that you are not alone. I know getting this process moving can be difficult, even if you don't have an assisted living, you're caring for a loved one at home. Things get hard to keep up with their eating, to make sure they're eating the right set of food. You may not be an ALF, but you may need a menu to make sure your mom and dad is getting the nutritional type of food that they should be eating, and someone that you can call and ask questions, and they can give you guidance and feedback on what you can do to get the most out of their meals. So if there's anything you want us to cover, put your questions in the comments below and we will answer them and make sure you get the right resources that you need. And I will see you in the next one.